normally he'd be sitting right over here to my left, but he's busy with the work project at the moment. He'll be joining us later on, but I wanted to kind of catch you up on what's been happening since our episode 1 inaugural video, if you will. Life's been busy. We saw the end of July. We're right now hurtling through August. This is 2024, so if you see at some point in the way future, you'll get a sense of where we are. And I wanted to circle back and kind of complete the thought that we started when we introduced ourselves. So I'm Maria. Michael, you'll see a little bit later on. We've started this channel, Our Soft Landing, and really it's a way to kind of do a couple of different things. It's to communicate to our friends and family the journey that we are undertaking as we prepare to move and if you will, retire and move to Portugal. It's a way to also help hold ourselves accountable and to kind of track some milestones on that path and in that process. And we hope that for those of you who might have the same sort of idea or intention, it might be both entertaining and also useful and informative and help you along the way. So I actually made notes, because that's how I am, from my previous video on things we wanted to sort of kind of pull through the thought through and kind of finish up. Initially, we were introducing ourselves. We're here in the Northeast in the United States of America. And while we love our lives and our jobs and our friends and family, we came to a realization that you can be both very happy with how your life is, satisfied with it, and at the same time long for a change, for something different, something new. Either something new you just now start to think about, or perhaps something that you wanted to do for a long, long time, just haven't had the chance, and life has sort of gotten in the way and interrupted that. So give you a little bit more background on me, since Michael's busy with his work project. I would say, I think I introduced in the first video that I've done for most of my career, I have done project management. It's a great thing for people who are firstborn type A busybodies by nature, which I am. So it's a great way to kind of lean into your strength. And so I've chosen to do that. I like to bring order to chaotic situations, whether that's teams that are trying to focus on delivering a project or a product, or it's any type of a project or goal that you might have. So for me, the planning part of it, the dreaming, the researching, making the connections, making those decisions comes very naturally. It's something I like to do. But I do recognize that for many people that can be overwhelming. So part of what we'd like to talk about in some future episodes is kind of how to break down what might seem like a large, challenging project or decision into manageable bite-sized steps so you can become successful at it, whether or not it is moving to another country, taking a sharp, turn in a particular stage of your life. So yeah, I want to let you know that you can be both happy with what you have and also interested in trying something new and something different. So you can just make glance down, because I will be referencing my notes, because that's why I wrote them down. So I've been doing project management for a long time at several different companies. I worked in the Department of Defense area for about 12 years. I've been working for a Fortune 500 company now for the last 9 going on 10 years. So it's a great experience and I enjoy what I do. However, I've always wanted to explore other aspects of myself and my skill set. And I've really always thought that there are areas that I would love to be part of, such as the healthcare world and providing that access and information for people. So that's something I might explore when I go to Portugal and sort of retire. Or getting into real estate, which is something that I also enjoy, because I love everything about houses and home renovation and the selling and buying of homes. And that interests me. So I might pursue getting a realtor's license when I'm there and doing that. So we'll see. I don't know. Stick with us. Maybe we'll see how it pans out. Or I might join the circus. I don't know. I haven't really decided yet fully what I want to do. I'll let Michael really talk about some of the things he's interested in exploring, right, when we have the opportunity to do so. So just to get you grounded, I think we mentioned that we're both sort of I'm like right smack middle of my 50s, and Michael's closing in fast on getting to 60, but he's not there yet. So It's interesting because his birthday always aligns with whatever the Super Bowl number is for that year. So it makes it easy. That's how he remembers what age he is. So he doesn't have to do backwards math. So we are not spring chickens, but we're also not exceedingly old people. At least I hope not. So I think we still have a lot of energy and time in front of us for things that we want to do. And I think that when you get to the stage of life that we're at, we have one child and he's going to be 16 later this year. And that's an interesting age for those of you that have kids, and especially those of you that have seen your children progress through different ages. When they're little, it's all about protecting them, and then they become teenagers, and it's about managing the ennui and staying connected with them through a turbulent period as they go through their teens, and then you see them hopefully progress into young adulthood and beyond, and that's a wonderful thing, and we're looking forward to all of those steps and all of those stages. So one of the reasons why we have targeted 2027 as the year that we make the change and move to Portugal is because that spring our son will have finished high school. So we're trying to make sure he can have a full contained high school experience here in the United States with his friends and the connections that he has made. And then allowing him to make a decision around college or university and where that might be. And then we can get him settled in freshman year, freshman dorm. And then we can focus on selling our home and getting rid of our things and sort of moving on and getting to Portugal. So fall of 2027, spring of 2028 kind of really is where that falls in order to make sure that that happens. Along the way, some of the things that we'll concentrate on and hopefully present in videos to you and to help kind of keep us honest is really talking and thinking about things like, how do you scout? Well, first of all, how do you make a decision that you want to make such a big change? What do you need to do? What's the self-work that you need to do? What's the kind of research? What do you need to understand? So we'll talk about Portugal pros and cons, not just what everyone will tell you about the pros of Portugal or moving to another country might be, or the key things you should look for, but also what our pros, our top 5 reasons why Portugal versus someplace else. So we'll see like how many of our personal reasons, pros and or cons, match up with the standard wisdom that's out there. So that's definitely one of the things we'll want to talk about. And we'll talk about scouting versus vacationing in a place as part of making a determination about whether you want to live there or could live there. And I hope that what we talk about and what we bring to you is not just our insight, but that it's a motivator for you to start thinking about your life, your decisions, what path and what track are you on. And one of the things I wanted to discuss today was this idea of, if you do find yourself in a place where you can say, I am still enjoying all the things that I'm doing, the place I'm living, the people I'm interacting with, the work that I'm doing, but I'm also sort of ready for a change. That can be scary. It is scary. Change is scary. But I'll tell you what I tell my son, and have told him since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, is that the only constant, the absolute only constant that I have seen in 55 years of life on this earth is change, right? And you can fight that, and you can grasp and try to hold on to things and people and situations and experiences, but I'll tell you something, it doesn't work, because things change, people change, opportunities come and go, and if you fight to try to hold on to them, it's like holding sand, right? The closer you make that fist, the more the sand, the granules just kind of dribble out between your fingers. It's inevitable that change is going to happen. So you have to decide, do I embrace the change? Do I live my life in such a way that I'm open to the change? Or do I fight it? And do I define myself by the things that are around me, the house that I live in, the clothing that I own, the job that I have, the friends and acquaintances that I keep, the hobbies that I participate in? They're interesting things. They're markers, they're indicators of something. and our society holds great value in that. But they aren't who you are. And if those things get stripped away or if they change, where does that leave you if you define yourself that way? And I know this sounds very philosophical, but I want to tell you one of the key things that led to us even entertaining making a huge change. Because I'll tell you something, prior to 2019, I wasn't thinking about moving anywhere, not in a real sense. I thought about places in the world that I wanted to go, to vacation, to explore, and it was always like the financial consideration of, can you afford that? Do you have the time that you can take off? All those pieces. But I wasn't thinking about making a radical shift or change in my life. And then the universe stepped in. Because in the spring of 2019, we had a fire in this house. So everything you see behind you has been rebuilt. So I rebuilt this kitchen twice inside of 7 years. We had remodeled what had been a smaller little bungalow, 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, and we had turned it into a 2-story home with an in-law space right on the other side of the wall there, where my mom has her own sort of like mini apartment that she lives in. And we had renovated everything. And we had scrimped and we had saved. And there was actually a gap between putting the 2nd story on and kind of squirreling away some extra money to then revamp the kitchen. And then I redesigned 1950s footprint and created my dream kitchen. And about 3.5 years later, we had a fire in the middle of the night. We got out alive. So thank goodness, the important things were not damaged. My son, my mother, my husband, myself, we got out alive. We did lose our dog and our 2 cats. It's the only thing I cried about. The stuff was stuff. In that moment, when you realize, and this, for many of you who may have had similar types of experiences, that you could have lost a loved one, or they could have been seriously hurt, the stuff doesn't matter. So we found ourselves, going to bed as usual that night, and then before dawn, standing just in our pajamas and slippers outside the house as the firefighters, worked to keep the fire contained. The end result was we spent the next 16 months outside of our home. The house had to be completely gutted. There was not a tremendous amount of fire damage, but there was a tremendous amount of damage from the smoke, and the soot was in everything. And for those of you that have gone through it, soot gets into everything. And so they literally stripped the house. All that was left was the exterior shell. They stripped everything out, plumbing, electrical, everything. And then they cleaned it with special, both chemicals and materials. And then they sealed everything, and then they air tested it. And then when they knew that it was safe, they rebuilt the inside. So I had the opportunity over the course of those 16 months, as we waited and all these things were done, to suddenly pick everything new, make thousands of decisions, because everything had to be repurchased and rebuilt. Now, when I tell you that happened in the spring of 2019, you're going to say, oh, well, we know what happened in the spring of 2020. But between the spring of 2019, when we had the house fire, and we suddenly found ourselves going from living in our home to living in an apartment that was being paid for by our insurance company, because thankfully we had the right coverage and enough of the coverage to pay for that. So I do say, I'm going to pause and do a PSA here to check your homeowner's policies, make sure you have enough coverage, make sure you have replacement costs, make sure that you're not saving a few dollars on your annual premium and putting yourself and your family at risk. It's important, because when you need it, when you call, and when you finally know that you have enough, you're thankful that you pay that extra $14 or $75 a year for premium, and it's going to pay out now. So we found ourselves in this apartment. It was suddenly like all of our stuff was gone. Like nothing was salvageable. The clothes was not salvageable. Nothing. Like literally just what we had on, which was pajamas. That was it. Everything had to be repurchased. And there was this, we talk about business all the time, like something being a paradigm shift, something being disruptive, right? Everything's sort of going along, and then this disruptive thing happens, and just how people even think about, how they conceive about something is different. And that's what happened. Because suddenly we weren't living in a house. with multiple bathrooms and bedrooms. We were all crammed into a small apartment, on top of each other with much fewer things than we started off with, the day before, certainly. And it didn't change how I thought. What it did was it kind of took the aperture that I was looking through and kind of opened it up a little bit. Like, oh, this is what living in a downtown apartment building, this converted mill, is like. This is kind of cool. Oh, downstairs they've got a games room and a gym and pool tables. And when we walk outside, instead of being in our suburban neighborhood, which I'm used to with our yard and everything else, it's, we're surrounded by little restaurants and some little stores, and it's a very different feeling. And it got me thinking, and I know it got Michael thinking about, this is a nice place to live, a nice way to live. It's different than we've ever experienced before. Could we do something like this when we're retired? This might be interesting. Slight interruption. My mother came in, so I had to step away. I think I was talking about how being forced to suddenly change how we live, going from a suburban to a slightly more urban place, even though it was just like the town next door, just shifted how we thought about things. It shifted how I thought about things, and it planted a seed. Let's put it that way. It planted a seed. And then in February of 2020, Michael was hit by a car while walking in the city for work. And he was fine, broke a leg, but as part of the follow-ups, that you do to make sure you're okay and there weren't any other issues, it did come to light that he had some rather large size, kind of the size that you would like to have in an opal or diamond, but not in a kidney stone, kidney stones. And they were like, we really need to get these out, and they're too big to just use the vibrational thing, and you're never going to pass this, and if we leave it alone, it's going to block, and then you're going to be in like kidney failure. So we really need to do something about this. But as this was discovered, and as it was planned to do the procedure, the small surgery to go in and break them up and then kind of suction them out, what hit, right? And the global pandemic suddenly became a thing. So in the early stages of that, we were dealing with him having been hit by the car, needing the surgery, me having to literally drop him off in front of the hospital. I'm masked, he's masked, he walks in, I can't go in, no one could go into anything. And we dealt with that. And then obviously we were in the midst of the pandemic. That changed everybody's life, right? That was absolutely a game changer for everyone. And again, we're still thinking, like, wow, our lives have changed yet again. So we had this change from the fire, going to live in this apartment, and now this. And the seed sprouted of, do I want to go back to mowing a lawn and taking care of a garden? I know it's kind of nice to have our weekends, well, before the pandemic hit, have our weekends free to just go off and do anything, explore, just walk around, just kind of footloose and fancy free. For those of you that are homeowners, you know that while there's great satisfaction in doing things around the house, it also means that, that little bit of spare time that you have either after work or on weekends, many times has to be allocated to cleaning out the gutters around the house, of the debris of leaf and dirt and whatever that's gotten in there so that the rainwater can flow freely. It's obviously mowing the lawn in the spring, summer, and early fall. It's tending to your garden beds, it's mulching, it's watering, it's weeding, it's all the things. And as much as it can create a beautiful space that hopefully you get out and enjoy, it does take time and it takes effort. And it's really interesting when suddenly that's taken away, insofar as like you're not having to do that all the time because you're not there. We would come back to the house because it was an entire 2 summers that we weren't here. But we would come once a week, and kind of just mow the lawn, but we weren't really tending the flower beds or any of those things. I wasn't planting window boxes. We weren't here to do that. So that little seed sprouted and started to flourish a little bit, and we thought these things can be different. So what I say to you is, if you're sitting there, you're not just a friend or family member who's like, we're just catching up to see like Maria's thought process here. If you're someone else watching and you're like, I'm thinking about moving to Portugal or moving someplace else or making some kind of big change, it's okay to explore. Exploring stuff, thinking about it, planning it, get yourself a notebook, right? Start writing down your ideas. I'm a big fan of writing down your ideas. Start writing down your ideas. Do some research. Talk to people. That costs nothing. And it can help you to figure out what you want. One of the things I wrote down on here that I wanted to talk about was deferred dreams and goals. I don't know about you, but when I was 8 or 9, if you asked me what I wanted to be and what I ended up becoming, they're not the same thing. And I know that sometimes as little kids we want to be like firemen and ballerinas and rock stars and whatever that might be, and those were not necessarily realistic goals for us, and so that's okay. But I also know that life, sometimes things that happen to us or decisions that we make can cause dreams to be deferred, goals to be set aside as we take care of the problem that's in front of us, or we unselfishly sometimes try to help a family member, right? And so people step into caregiving roles and do all sorts of things in order to support people around them. And that's wonderful that people do that. But when you get to a certain point in your life, or hopefully you get to a certain point in your life, that you've done all of that, you've done all of the service to friends and family. And hopefully you can take a moment to take a breath and ask yourself, do I have any of these deferred dreams or goals? And if I do, are they still things that are potentially achievable? And do I want to achieve them? Maybe you don't, because we change. Hopefully we change, we grow over time. So you might ask yourself if there are new things you want to try. Some of the big categories that I think about and have always thought about since I was a kid was obviously travel, right? Travel because I want to learn and explore different cultures and learn and hear different languages and the cuisines. I mean, I like to eat, so I love to taste the flavors of the world and kind of understand how we're all connected and also uniquely different through the culture and the cuisine that developed in each of our different regions. And so that's a very interesting thing that we want to explore. But if you live in the North American continent like we do, and if you wish to explore Western Europe or any place over in Europe or Africa, that part of the hemisphere, it's expensive to get across the pond. Each trip across the Atlantic is very expensive. I don't even know how some of the folks who live on the West Coast, first have to try, it's just a long period of time. They're traveling from the West Coast to get to the East Coast, to get on another flight, and then they get across. Like, it's just time and money. And so it limits what you can do, unless you've won the lottery and money is no object. So one of the biggest things for us was how do we bridge that? How do we make that happen? So we'll talk about that in part of our pros and cons. Why Portugal? So that's enough about me. I'm sure I'm going to edit a lot of this down because Michael's got to talk today a little bit about himself, so you can explore something else about him and what's motivating him to go and to make a change. And I just want to say that you don't have to defend your dreams and your choices. It's one of the best things about getting older. Downsides are creaky joints, being tired a lot more quickly than you were when you were younger. This is true. But gray hair, definitely a downside of getting older. But one of the plus sides is hopefully becoming more of yourself, more sure about who you are and what you want. And if you truly want it and you want to put the work in, then I hope you get to do the things you want to do. And I hope that in future episodes, we kind of break down the process of how to make a decision around moving to Europe, moving specifically to Portugal for us, but moving to Europe, making that type of a change, whether it's at whatever age in your life points that you might be, um, that you'll find it helpful to kind of walk that process with us, what that mindset is about, and make for yourself a decision if you do want to do that. Or here's another benefit. When you examine it, you might decide, I always thought I wanted to do that. And for a long time, I thought that these situations in my life were keeping me from doing it. But now that I've actually sat down and taken a breath and systematically examined it, it's not really for me anymore. And now I know that. And so now you don't have to have this feeling of like, I wish, I kind of, sort of, whatever, because you can put it aside. Knowing that you've explored it and it's not really the thing that you want. And then you can focus more wholly on the life that you are living and really be kind of present and mindful about what it is that you're part of each day. So you might see Michael next. We're new at editing, so we might intersperse, that's the word, intersperse some of my stuff with some of his stuff. I don't know. Listen, guys, we are very new to both doing the vlogs, editing, and all of that. So I know that in future, when we look back at these initial episodes, we're going to cringe at like, how do we do that? I can't believe that's how we did that. But it's all a learning process. And if I can be brave about it, hopefully you'll enjoy it. So I want to remind you to give us a like, because we're trying. Subscribe, because that helps us. Hit the notification button, because we're not committing. This is not our jobs. Like, we have full-time jobs and lives that we enjoy and we want to keep living. So we don't know. We'd love to put one out every week, some point during the week, but not always. So the best thing is if you hit the notification button, then it'll let you know that we've just kind of released a new video. So you don't have to keep checking every once in a while. But it's our soft landing. I hope that we can inspire you to either examine and enjoy more the life you're currently leading, or decide to make a change and do something else, and you can have your own soft landing somewhere, wherever that might be perfect for you. So I hope that you have a great week. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.